Next up, we have Cesaire Tobias presenting productivity hacks that you can do with your Rprofile.
Yeah, Cesaire, or Ches as everyone knows me, so if you see that crazy spelling, it's this guy. I've got a quick 5 minutes to talk to you about your Rprofile. So let's dive straight into it. I'll talk about what it is. I'm not going to go into the weeds because it's a lightning talk. For anyone who is super interested in this stuff, there's some useful links at the end. I'll talk about where it lives, what you do with it, or at least what I do with it, and then conclude. So what is it? Really, it's just a startup script that R runs every time it starts. You can customize your setup, specify some options, really tweak it to what will be useful to you when in your workflow. You can have multiple Rprofiles, different ones for different projects, or you can have a bunch in a Rprofile directory. But importantly, do note that you only get one Rprofile loaded per session. So it'll live in one of these 3 locations, but there's a precedence order. So if you've got an Rprofile in all 3 of those locations, the one in your current working directory is the one that's going to be used. So just be cautious of that. And if you don't have an Rprofile, simple to create, use a text editor or use file.create and store it in one of those 3 locations. So what do I use it for? Really, it's just like a big mishmash, hodgepodge of stuff that I haven't put into a package yet. So things that help me mitigate the more mundane, monotonous, repetitive things that I do in my workflow. I try as best as possible to make it functions that will only run interactively, because that's going to reduce the chance of limiting reproducibility or portability of my code. And also, as much as possible, try to write functions using base R. There are a couple of exceptions, as you will see. I don't always use base R. So now examples, probably as the title suggests, is the bit we wanted to get to. So you can see that they're super simple, but often I find that when things are very simple, we don't take the time to actually just, write them out. So, for example, I work with a lot of crazy Excel data, so big tables, when you read them in, prints out in the console and it's useless to read. So head, tail, left, right, NA rows, they'll just give you a nice readable view of the top end, bottom end, and so on, rows and columns of a table. This one, I don't know if I've been doing this right. So have any of you ever had a project and you've got like 10 scripts in it, and then you run the project or something in the project, and now you've got to like open each script and Control-Shift-Enter everything. I have done that before, so I thought, let me do this little function. So I just run it and it runs all the scripts in that particular folder. Oof is cool. I got this one just last week from one of my former bosses. So if you use teststat for testing your packages, you can have your script and then just oof it, and it will go to the test file for that script, which is pretty useful. And then to conclude, I think it's a great place for anybody to really get rid of the stuff that they're doing repetitively in their workflow, just to help shave those seconds off your day, and also the boring parts of stuff that could get you frustrated before you've really reached your threshold. And then try, as a rule of thumb, not to include anything that won't be run interactively. You don't want to have an Rprofile with functions that you are now including in your scripts. You send that to someone and all of a sudden it doesn't work on their computer. And because we have a little bit more time, there's also something cool called Snippets, which is also a nice little productivity hack if anybody hasn't heard of it before. That one, if you guys work in Windows, it's a pain. You copy a path and then you paste it in and you get the silly Windows backslashes, and now you've got to make them forward slashes. You just paste path and it'll paste it right, so that's handy. They're my useful links. Thank you for your time. Chat if you care more about your Rprofile. Cheers.